I'd like to call the meeting to order. Douglas? Jason, please.
Pray for our local leaders, guiding them as they first responders here.
Flag of the United States of America, to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin tonight, I'd like to take a moment to clarify that the Planning Commission is a recommending body to the Columbia County Board of Commissioners. Decisions made on rezoning and variance requests tonight will be forwarded to the Commissioners for final action on the April 2nd, 2024. If you wish to address the Board of Commissioners at their meeting, please see Ms. Stoller to obtain a request to speak form. Any request with public hearing will have a minimum of 10 minutes permitted per side for the presentation of opinions, data, and evidence by proponents or opponents of a request. The applicant will be allowed to speak first, and any member of the public may speak after. Either side may cede their time during the hearing if they so desire. Have a quorum. I need a motion for approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Chairman, I make a motion to approve.
Second. Yes, sir. All in favor? Motion carries. I have a motion for the approval of tonight's agenda.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for tonight's meeting.
Second. All in favor? First item. Representative Mr. Will Butler.
There's a sheriff's request for rezoning on 1535 Afton Harlem Road on 2 acres from RA to C1. The conditional use for a convenience store of fuel pumps is postponed from the March 7th meeting. This is location of the property, again, just north of the I-20 exit with Afton Harlem, and I'll cross from the White Oak Business Park. Again, it shows the current zoning. Again, it's current zone RA. You have some planning development here, and then also some M2 again for the White Oak Business Park, and the S1 up here is for a church. Shows aerial view of the site. Also the existing site, again, currently in residential use, and the plat of the property. So the overall plan itself is for a proposed convenience store. That's where the conditional use comes from. From a pure land use standpoint, this is within an activity center. So again, that request from that standpoint works out quite well. Again, request is for C1. You could probably put M1 or M2 in there fairly simply. So again, that is really where it's not really a huge issue from the land use side of things, excuse me. Before, when this was postponed, there was some issues raised by both the sheriff's office and also from staff in some respects in regards to transportation on the site itself. So we'll see that on the next slide. So what we're looking at is you have this protected right coming out of Alliance Drive, which gets a lot of use when Amazon changes shifts. This is how folks go south onto that street, onto that road itself. There was some concern raised by the sheriff that they would basically be able to come in here and then whip around and get into this convenience store. So that was a primary issue there. Talking with GDOT, they said that yes, this will have to be expanded. This basically protected right will go down to at least there. If we go back to the previous slide, you had the pork chop. That's what this is called here for the right and right out. That would have to be definitely enlarged. Again, these are not engineered drawings. This is not something that they're able to say, okay, you're going to have to do exactly this. This one they're looking at saying, okay, we know you're going to have to do it. The whole idea is to make it so that you cannot turn left into this site. It may be that those two things accomplish that goal, but it may be, if you can go back to the next slide, it may be there's a small, basically, median will be put in somewhere in here on the property to prevent, there's no way if you're going south to turn left. There is a concern about rear-end collisions with this, and also with sight distance on the site itself. So the access side of things is going to be handled by GDOT, and it is an issue. However, at this point, we feel that it's far enough along, we have enough information that we're comfortable moving forward with it at this time. Due to all those factors, future development, like we're already talking about, this is with an activity center, does allow for this type of development. Again, there is some kind of a thought that it could be closer to the interstate, but again, the parcels to the south, in this area here, there is, on the map, there is topo, some issues of environmental. So again, not the easiest places to develop. This is one that, this high up, or just far up the road itself, probably a simpler site. Taking all that into account, staff does recommend approval of the request. So staff recommendation.
Anyone in the audience, Smith or Patel, that would like to speak on behalf of this? Sir?
Not to you, I do have a question for Will.
All right.
What prevents them from, because I just looked at, I didn't see it before. What prevents them from making a left
Out of what part?
out of Alliance Drive? So,
I
because
mean-
if you're coming in, if I saw that correctly,
So-
there's an ingress,
Yeah,
egress to the right.
you can't take a left out of there.
Right, you have to go
So
down and swing
the
around,
left
right?
is the entrance, taking a left into the site. That's what I'm talking about when I say a left.
No, I'm talking, right, but if you come out, you can't go left out of Alliance Drive on the Appling Harlem Highway. So if you are going to do that, you have to come down that pork chop and turn around.
Well, no, you have to go, the way that it should function, again, is you come all the way down and you hit that roundabout and then go back up.
Back up, okay.
The idea, again, right now, could you pull a UE in there? Yeah, you could. I didn't try it, but I thought about it when I went over there a few weeks ago. You could do it. Now, are you supposed to? No. And that's really where, this becomes a target for, okay, I want to get in there. Therefore, I can't go, I don't want to go up and deal with Innovation Parkway and come in that way. I want to go this way. Therefore, if I don't have this extended all the way down to where I can't pull up the U-turn, then that's kind of what happens. Again, right now, no one's wanting to do that, the best we can tell. Again, it's somebody doing it that could, but it's not like, it's not an easy, you're not looking for a place to go at that point.
Right.
Anyone here opposed to this, like to speak? This has been requested to be postponed until the May 2nd meeting. Is that correct?
So the applicant has requested
Yes,
that.
the applicant has requested to postpone.
Staff is recommending to approve it and move it on to the Board of Commissioners. And ask the applicant if they were okay with doing that or what they would like to do at this point.
Patel, would you like to keep the postponement, or? Can I get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend disapproval of file RZ 24-03-02, rezoning the property at 1535 Appling Harlem Road from RA to C1 with conditional use for gas pumps.
Can I have a second? Do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor? Opposed?
Well, no, the motion passed.
Motion passed.
3-1
The
disapproval.
motion passed.
The recommendation of the Board of Commissioners will.
Right. Okay, go to the variance.
All right, this is a request for a variance, section -147, 10B2I, use provisions on the same property at 1535 Appling Harlem Road. This is to decrease building separation. So again, property that we just dealt with on the east side of Appling Harlem Road, currently zoned RA. Again, property around it is zoned M2B and S1, shows the location of the property, or the area of the property, excuse me. This is the existing site, and also the plat of the property. So what we're dealing with, and it's been well illustrated here by the applicant, so with any kind of convenience store, you have a separation of the buildings on the site, basically, of 100 feet from anything that's zoned residential around it. So this line here illustrates that. Basically, you can't build a convenience store on the site without having a variance to this. And that is there to protect, you have lights, noise, sound, that sort of thing that can be detrimental with a convenience store. That's why it's there, that's the reason. So what the applicant has requested is to reduce that down to the 50-foot that you can see here on the property. That gets all of their stuff for the use within that box. From a staff standpoint, there isn't a residential use near this. The property that's behind it, not currently being used for that. It could be potentially, so it's one that asking for only what they need is recommended. That's what they've done. So due to those factors, staff does recommend approval of the variance request. Please staff recommendation.
The audience would like to speak out in favor of this? One in the audience would like to speak out opposed? Having a motion?
Chairman, I make a motion to recommend disapproval of file VA 24-03-03, variance to section 90-147 to reduce the building separation from the residential properties from proposed gas station at 1535 Appling Harlem Road.
Have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
And our next application is a application for rezoning from C3 heavy commercial to S1 for several parcels located just off of Rose Street. This shows the location again of the 3 parcels that are a part of this application off Rose Street, close to Bobby Jones Expressway, directly next to the Lowe's Shopping Center. This shows their current zoning. Again, they're currently zoned C3. They're surrounded on all sides by C2 property. Again, C3 heavy commercial allows for more industrial uses compared to C2 allowing for largely commercial uses in the code. This shows an aerial site of the property. It's undeveloped currently. The application also includes a small strip that's not outlined by red that is currently right-of-way that will be reallocated towards this property, and the concept plan will illustrate that in a moment. This is the current site. And this is the concept plan. The history on this property is it's received various approvals for this self-storage use that this application is for multiple times in the past. When the code allowed it as a conditional use in the C2 zoning district, this property had C2 zoning and it received approval for that conditional use. After that, in 2020, they also received approval much similarly to this application for S1 approval, again for self-storage. However, then later the applicant just thought they were going to go in a different development direction for more industrial warehouse uses that lent itself to the C3 zoning district it currently has. C3 would allow for self-storage as on the property as it is currently zoned. However, the trade-off with this application is C3 zoning, as it abuts C2 zoning, requires a structural buffer all the way around those lot lines. The S1 zoning will allow the applicant to have a reduced buffer, and it allows greater architectural controls on the county side. All external walls on this property, including a privacy wall, 8-foot privacy wall that runs along the road frontage along Rose Street, will all be stucco and stone. That's more than normally would be required. And all the privacy fencing on the property will be wrought iron fencing. So given those, further concessions provided by the applicant, that's kind of the trade-off for the reduced buffer that this S1 zoning would supply. And all landscaping code requirements on this site would be met as well, planning densities and the like. The next slide shows that this site is within a activity center, the Martinez Activity Center. While this activity center doesn't typically account for industrial uses like this self-storage facility, as I previously mentioned, C3 does allow for self-storage as it is currently. And again, with the additional architectural requirements that the S1 zoning would bring with it, staff is recommending approval of this application, provided a combination plat for the 3 separate parcels be submitted to the county within 60 days of BOC approval of this application, should they receive it.
Anybody here like to speak on behalf of this request? Owners? And the audience would like to speak opposed to this request? Have a motion?
Chairman, I make a motion to recommend approval with conditions of file RZ 24-03-03, zoning from C3 to S1 for self-storage, properties at 245 Rose Street, 3862 Rose Court, 3866 Rose Lane.
Second. All in favor? Carries. Douglas?
Yes, sir. And our next application is an application for major revision at 2024 High Grass Court. This is a lot within the Crawford Creek subdivision in the village section of that subdivision. This shows the location off of Hereford Farm Road again in the Crawford Creek subdivision. This shows the zoning. The entirety of the Crawford Creek subdivision is zoned PUD, planned unit development. This is an aerial shot of the location and the home existing on location. This is a plat for the property. And then this is the proposed concept plan. This application is for a reduction to a rear setback for the installation of a pool. This lot, this section of Crawford Creek has 15-foot front setbacks and 7.5-foot side setbacks uniformly throughout it. However, this section also has 20-foot rear setbacks. So that's somewhat atypical compared to other residential zoning districts of this lot size. The reason for that larger rear setback, we believe, was originally it was planned that stormwater and drainage utility measures were going to be installed along these rear lot lines. There is a stormwater and drainage utility easement along that runs concurrently with that rear setback. It's 20 feet wide. However, none of those measures were ever installed at this location. And so our stormwater department, as they review all of our applications. They reviewed this application and are right with these plans, provided an easement encroachment agreement is filed, which the applicant has filed alongside this application. Again, so the reduction would be from a 20-foot rear setback to a 10-foot rear setback. You can see on this concept plan in the bottom right side, there's an existing shed that's on a concrete slab. There is a condition included with this application to allow that shed and the concrete slab to remain where they are. It would be difficult, obviously, to remove a concrete slab, and there's also a topographical downslope that would prevent the shed from standing evenly in any other location without a different concrete slab. And so that would be the only exception to the incoming 10-foot rear setback. The proposed pool and any other future above or below ground structures on this lot would need to meet the 10-foot rear setback. Beyond that, the property immediately behind this property on the other side of that rear setback is allocated green space with a trail, and it's largely covered by FEMA flood zones affiliated with the actual Crawford Creek on that location. So it's unlikely to be developed, and no one would be adversely affected by this reduction in the rear setback. Again, I mentioned that we had a condition included from our office about the existing shed. Again, it would be the only thing that would be allowed in exception to the incoming 10-foot rear setback should they gain approval. And then stormwater included their condition about filing the easement encroachment agreement, which again is in process alongside this application. So staff is recommending approval with those conditions.
Anyone in the audience, Rick and Bob, like to speak? Come on up. Anybody opposed would like to come? Have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval with conditions of file RZ 24-03-04 major PUD revision to reduce the rear setback at 2024 High Grass Court to 10 feet.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Carries.
Yes, so this is a variation request at 3720 Washington Road on .99 acres, and the current zoning is C2. It's in the Corridor Protection Overlay District, and the variation is to allow overhead doors on the frontage and to exceed the metal allowance. Here is the location, which is next to the Master Buick dealership. Zoning is C2 in the C pod. And this is the aerial of the property, which is basically undeveloped. Some site photographs here. And this is the plat of the property. So this is the site plan that's in for review for this building, which is an oil change and car wash facility that's basically for the Master Buick dealership and for public use as well. And this photograph shows where the overhead doors that are shown in the blue are allowed on the rear elevation. The ones in orange are the exit doors to where the cars come through the building. Those aren't allowed in the C-Pod, and that's what the variation is for. These are the elevations. The top one is the one facing Washington Road. The overhead doors will be of a glazed design, which fits in with the general area there. And the elevations show metal panels, which are about 65 to 90% of the wall areas. And these are the other two elevations, the rear and the side elevation as well. These are the renderings of the building. They show the metal panels used on the building. They are earth tone colors, which fits in with the general area. And there's two types of panels used, a flat panel and also a ribbed panel, and that also breaks up the elevation, creates some interest, and staff is recommending approval with a condition that the final elevation shall be substantially similar to the submitted design for the variation application.
Anybody from the Master Real Estate or Chris Booker want to come up and speak? Just state your name and your address.
Chris Booker with Booker Vic Architects, 70 Broad Street, Vesta, 391. Anya explained it very well. We just have a narrow site, and we're trying to do a car wash, oil change facility to be used by dealership and by the public. Nearly impossible to get the roll-up doors on the sides. We're going with a nice glass aluminum overhead door, which kind of match storefront glass. And the metal panels, we're trying to match the design intent as the dealership and the other dealerships on Washington Road.
This is a public use facility, not just for Masters.
Correct, it'll be for both.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in behalf? One opposed would like to come speak? I have a motion.
Chairman, I make a motion to approve with conditions file VA 24-03-04. Variation to section 90-99 to allow overhead doors facing Washington Road, the use of additional architectural metal panels on the building at 3720 Washington Road.
Have a second?
I second it.
All in favor? Carries. Montgomery?
Yes, sir. This is a request for a variance to section 90-135, which is our sign code. This is in regards to canopy signage for Parker's gas station that's under construction out at Gateway. This shows the location of the property on the west side of Horizon South Parkway. You can see it does have 3 road frontages. That does impact our sign allowance for the county. County sign code is based on square footage of the building, but also the road frontages. So they could have freestanding and wall signs for each road frontage, as well as canopy signs facing each road frontage, as we'll see with their sign package a little later. The property is currently zoned C2, as are all of the immediately adjacent properties. This is an older aerial of the site. It doesn't quite look like that anymore. It's currently under construction, as you can see here. And this is the site plan, so this shows the building and the gas canopy there on the north side of the site. It also shows the kind of just general layout and overall sign plan. So they are intending to have 3 building signs as well as the freestanding sign on Horizon South and then the 3 signs on the canopy. So the proposed canopy signs are 67.5 square feet. There would be one on each of those 3 sides of the canopy. Our county sign code does allow 12 square feet, so that is quite a significant difference from what they are requesting. We've had one previous application for a variance to canopy signage in the county that was disapproved by the Board of Commissioners. It was actually pretty similar in nature as far as the size they were requesting. That one was requesting a 68 square foot canopy sign, and that was turned down. This is the overall sign package for Parker's. You can see where those 3 canopy signs would be located on the canopy, as well as the 3 building signs, which again, they're allowed per code. Since they do have the 3 road frontages, they're allowed all of the signage by right, as well as their freestanding sign there by their entrance on Horizon South. Just to give an idea of the area here, part of the applicant's argument is that the larger canopy signage would increase visibility of this site and make it easier for people to find them. This is a picture coming off of I-20 with the new diverging diamond. You can see with the topography of this site, basically the way this area stair steps, the new building there that's under construction is essentially above the building that would normally be in front of it. So it is actually a pretty high visibility site already as you're coming off I-20. It's not going to be blocked by that adjacent building. And this is a Google Earth view from the other exit. I didn't drive off both of them, to be honest. But you can see a similar situation there where you can very clearly see the site as you're coming off the interstate. It's not particularly blocked by any of the surrounding development. So it is already a high visibility location. It is already allowed the additional signage because it has the 3 road frontages. So staff is of the opinion that the additional canopy signage really isn't necessary, and the applicants really have not demonstrated any hardship or loss of use from needing to follow the sign code, and staff is recommending disapproval of the variance request.
Thank you. One from Drayton Parker would like to speak. State your name and address.
Commission, I'm Daniel Ben Israel, Real Estate Development Manager with Drayton Parker Companies and Parker's Kitchen. Happy to be back before you once more. We are excited that this location is under construction now. We ran into a few hiccups with some geotechnical issues. However, we've solved those problems and construction is moving along. So we're hoping to get this up in the upcoming months. The request that is before you, and I appreciate staff's summary, is a petition for us to increase the canopy signage. I know you have in your packets a rendering showing the canopy that we're proposing. It's a double-stacked canopy. It's very long, 119 feet by 42 feet wide, and 12 square feet is really small when you try to place a sign on a canopy that size. In fact, if you were to, it's not shown in this rendering, but we have where the apostrophe is in the Parker's Kitchen. That's actually typically that's a milo, what we call a milo, kind of like a sunburst. But in many cases, because we're not allowed to exceed the top of the canopy, we will remove that. Well, if we were limited to 12 square feet, that milo is the only thing that we could actually fit on the canopy and still be in compliance with the ordinance. We're hoping to fare better than the last applicant that appeared before you in the commission in this regard. We do not feel that our proposal, takes away from the harmony in the area and does not pose a detriment, if you will, to adjacent properties. So we respectfully ask for your favorable consideration of our request.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Anybody like to speak? Else? Get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend disapproval of file VA 24-03-05, variance to section 90-135 to increase the allowed canopy signage at 925 Husk Box Way.
Second.
All in favor? Carries. I have a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn this.
Second.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned.